Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started because I do know that Chairman Lumsden has somewhere else to be. I'm going to call to order this subcommittee of the Special Committee on Elections Integrity. I'd like to thank the members of the committee who are here. I appreciate it. I know it's time for us all to head home to our districts. We have three, I believe, relatively uncontroversial bills here on the agenda for today. Two of them are some technical fixes, and one of them has bipartisan support. So hopefully this will be quick and easy. I'd like to go ahead and start with Chairman Lumsden's bill. That would be House Bill 136. If you would please, Chairman Lumsden.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. We're working from LC 470705. This is a short bill. This is a bill that came about as a result of a situation that came about in one of the counties that I represent. There are 39 counties in Georgia that do not have an elections board. They rely on the probate judge as the chief elections officer in that county. The law is very clear when it relates to what happens when the probate judge should resign or dies in office, but it does not specifically address what happens if one is incapacitated. And in Chattooga County this past year, we lost our probate judge to COVID, and he was incapacitated for about a month during a critical period of time during the elections process. So it was brought to my attention by the county attorneys dealing with this issue that Georgia law did provide some problems for the replacement of a person during the time of if incapacitation occurred. So what you have before you is a bill that simply addresses that. Line 17 is really the crux of the bill. If he's incapacitated or unable to perform the duties of the election superintendent for a period of time more than 5 days, then the chief judge of the superior court in the circuit to which the county is assigned shall appoint a qualified individual to serve as the acting elections superintendent during that vacancy or incapacitation. That is the crux of the bill. That's what I bring to you today, and I'll be glad to answer any questions for you that you might have as best I can.
All right. Does any member of the committee have a question? Number 15. All right. Representative Alexander.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions. So what was the purpose of the bill? I know you said it happened in your county. My understanding is that if the county has a board of registers and not a board of elections, how will this bill, how will they be subjected to this bill?
This only applies to those 39 counties that I mentioned that use the probate judge as the chief elections officer. These are counties that do not have a board of elections.
Right. So my understanding is it would affect about 25 counties in
30,
Georgia.
I think 39 counties
Right.
total is what I understood from Legislative Council.
Right. So have we discussed this bill with multiple counties that would be affected? Other than, I know you mentioned about your county, but
I have reached out to ACCG. They have no problem with this. Also with the Probate Judges Association, I've also spoken with them, and they're good on this bill too.
Okay, Madam Chair, one more question.
Yes.
It also mentions that this would only be in place if a county could not fill a vacancy by election.
Right.
So in previous cases where this has happened, what exactly happened in that county?
The court usually is, Superior Court judge usually is the one that would decide that, but there is no clear language in the law that gives that direction. So what we're trying to do here with this is just give clear direction in the event that should happen.
Right. Would there be any training to, to make sure that the acting election superintendent receive or is required to complete prior to assuming their role?
The
Is there any training for that?
The language used here says that upon filling of a vacancy in the office of judge of pursuant, I said, no, pardon me, the judge will appoint a qualified individual to serve as the acting elections superintendent. Doesn't go into detail about what those qualifications are. I think those are probably already covered in other sections of the law as to what those qualifications are. It
Right.
just says that they would appoint a qualified person to
Right.
that
What was
position.
the organization that you said supports this bill? Did you mention?
I said that the Probate Judges Association is the one that would really be involved in this.
Right.
And there may be some other things that come about regarding a similar situation to this, but this is the particular issue that we're dealing with.
Right. What about the Association of County Commissioners? Are they supporting it?
I spoke to them about it. They said they really had no problem, but it really comes to the Probate Judges Association.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes,
Thank you for so
Mhm.
many. There's a lot of questions, but thank you.
Understand. Yes, sir.
Any other questions for members of the committee? All right. Thank you for your presentation today. Is there anyone in the audience who has and would like to speak to the bill? Or yeah, is there anybody who would like to speak to the bill? Okay. All right. Well, at this time, I will entertain a motion. Go ahead again.
Move to pass.
All right, is there a second? If not, I'll second it. Okay, I'll second the motion then. All right, all those in favor of the passage of this on to the full committee for the consideration at the full committee, please vote by stating aye.
Aye.
And those who are opposed, please vote like sign. All right, then we will probably address this in the full committee since we're having trouble getting people here to the subcommittee, but I'm sorry, this will have to be addressed later. All right, at this time, I would like to call House Bill 64 by Representative Houston Gaines. You can present from where you are.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a piece of legislation that, has bipartisan support and something that we had an issue in Athens, Clark County last year, where a candidate for county commission passed away tragically just a couple days before the election. He still received the majority of the votes in the election, but under current law in nonpartisan races, there's not an opportunity to fill that in nonpartisan races. Frankly, the law in our state, I believe, is outdated, and so the candidate who received less votes was seated and now serves on the county commission. And so, what this bill simply says is that if a candidate in a nonpartisan race passes away, but still receives the requisite votes to be elected, then there would be a special election to fill that seat. And so that's simply what the bill does. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, do any members of the committee have any questions? All right, does anyone want to speak to this bill? All right, thank you very much, Representative Gaines. The next bill on the calendar is House Bill 59. Representative Wes Cantrell. And we are working from LC 280153S.
Make sure I have it. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have been fascinated with ranked choice voting, otherwise known as instant runoff voting. Those are synonymous terms. Really since before I got elected. And when I got elected about 7 years ago, my primary race went into a runoff, and I had 9 weeks through the summer to enjoy going door to door and sweating a whole lot, thinking my opponent was doing the same, not realizing they weren't working. So I worked real hard and won 180 to 20 in the runoff. But I was kind of like in my mind going, why in the world do we have a 9-week runoff? So I did some research and found out it was because of a federal judge's ruling several years back, we used to have 4-week runoffs, and a federal judge ruled that didn't give enough time for the military and overseas citizens votes to get back in. So that's how we got to this 9-week, I'll call it a mess that we have now. So last fall, since I've been down here, I've tried to, kind of gauge if some of my colleagues shared my passion for this, and it was hard to get anybody on board. Last fall, I saw a Facebook group discussing this topic, and it was all Democrats. And so I reached out to my Democrat colleagues and said, "Hey, y'all interested in this?" "Yeah, we're interested." So we met and discussed several times, and this was one of the options they suggested, and I thought it was a great one, and that was to follow the lead of 5 other high military states: Arkansas, Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, and South Carolina, who allow instant runoff voting for military and overseas citizens, what's called UOCAVA, military and overseas citizen absentee voters. So the major benefit, the thing that appealed to me the most, and this was all before we entered into that crazy 9-week runoff that we just all experienced with the senatorial race and the Public Service Commission, was the idea of getting back to a 4-week runoff. My constituents love this idea. They hate the length of that, especially when it's in the general and it goes through Christmas and New Year's. You're trying to watch a Christmas movie and you're getting Ossoff and Leffler and Perdue and Warnock until you just, it's just ridiculous. And so it kind of brought this to even more light because people can't stand the length of it. The only people that like it are TV and print folks who get to make a ton of money off of us during that time. So an example would be the senatorial runoff and the PSC runoff that we just survived could have been held on December 1st if we had allowed ranked choice voting or instant runoff voting for military and overseas citizens. So I don't know if you want me to go in. Does y'all want me to explain how instant runoff voting works? Do y'all understand how it works? Is that you want me to explain it, or I don't want to, if y'all know how it works, I don't want to waste your time explaining it.
Why don't we see if there are any questions on that?
Okay. Just trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to tell you. Like I told you, the 5 other states that currently do it have high military populations, so they do it for the same reason, so they can have a 4-week runoff. That's about it.
All right, thank you, Representative. Are there any questions from the members? Representative Alexander?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I know you said you had bipartisan support for this, but I talked to some of those members that signed on to this bill. The bill went from 4 pages to 8 pages. Reading through the bill, which I did last night, is very convoluted. So I know if it's confusing to me up here as a member on this committee, it's going to be confusing to our voters, and it's going to be confusing to those election offices. So what's the rationale behind shortening the runoff election period from 9 weeks to 4 weeks? And why has this provision been apprehended onto a bill that was intended to impact the Uniform and Overseas Citizen Absentee Voting Act?
Because that's who it does impact. I didn't know this, but Representative Gaines was working on this same issue, and we had different attorneys and ledge counsel had written up our bills. And so he showed me his bill. It was written by a more senior member of ledge counsel. I felt like the bill, it's a complicated issue to put in print, Representative Alexander, but I felt like his version of the bill read a lot clearer than the version that I had. So I subbed his bill verbatim into my bill, into HB 59. It accomplishes exactly the same thing. Nothing's changed about the bill. It is longer because he goes into a lot more detail and he repeats himself a whole lot in the bill to make sure there's no misunderstanding. But yeah, it's, when you're explaining that a voter can vote, he offers a different explanation for a primary, and it's the same thing again for a general. And then it's how ranked choice voting works in a primary, then the same thing again in a general. And so it ended up being a lot longer bill than I wanted it to be. But the Ledge Council is trying to make sure we crossed every T and dotted every I.
But, Madam Chair, it appears that what is going on with the bill, because it is very convoluted, that you're really actually shortening down the runoff period.
Correct.
So
that's
with-
exactly, that's the
Right,
reason
so
for
with
the
that-
bill.
Right, so is there going to be enough time for the counties to make sure that they're prepared to sit up for 3 weeks in advance voting? So how is that going to affect that?
You'll have 4 weeks, so they'll still have 3 weeks of advanced voting. We did this for years prior to, I don't know what year it was when we went to a 9-week runoff, but it hasn't been that long ago. There'll be a little bit of a learning curve, to get back to 4 weeks. My heart in all of this is for the voter. It's not for me. It's not for anybody else. It's for the voters, because they are just sick and tired. And ultimately, I'd love to see us get rid of runoffs altogether, to be honest with you. But that's another issue for another day.
Right. But I
But this
guess-
would get us back to 4 weeks, and especially in the general, when it impacts Christmas and New Year's.
Right,
Um,
right. This is a follow-up. Wouldn't it shorten the runoff period, dampen overall turnout and voter participation? Since
I
you
don't
said
think
you're
so.
concerned about the voter?
I think the exact opposite would occur, because you don't have the voter fatigue where people are just sick and tired of all of it and have forgotten that, that we're doing this runoff because you're waiting 9 weeks. It's like, oh yeah, don't forget that. When it's 4 weeks, they're still focused from the general. And I think you'd have better turnout actually, but that's opinion. I don't have any research to back that up.
All right. Any other questions from members of the committee? All right. Thank you very much, Representative Cantrell. And that is the conclusion of our agenda. So this meeting is adjourned.